Imagine waking up to find your life savings gone overnight, your charity account drained, hospitals unable to access critical patient data, and the masterminds behind it all? Two girls you grew up with. Two sisters who once shared the same birthday candles, now sharing the FBI's most wanted list. Before we begin, comment below where you're watching from and subscribe to Bite Crimes. Your support helps us keep sharing chilling, educational true crime stories that reveal the dark side of the internet. So sit back, let's dive into the full story. Sophia and Isabella Reed were identical twins from a small, close-knit town in Oregon. To the world around them, they were bright, polite, and inseparable. Two young women everyone believed had promising futures. Sophia was a quiet one, known for her calm demeanor and razor-sharp intellect. Isabella was the outgoing twin, the one who always found a way to make friends in every room. They shared not just the same face, but the same dreams, or so their family thought. From a young age, the Reed sisters were fascinated by computers. Their father, an IT technician at a local school, often let them tinker with old machines he brought home. By the age of 12, they were already writing simple codes and creating digital games for their classmates. At first, it was all fun and harmless, just two curious minds exploring the virtual world together. But as they grew older, curiosity turned into ambition. The sisters discovered online forums where hackers shared tools and secrets. Late at night, when their parents thought they were asleep, the twins sat side by side, faces lit by the glow of their laptop screens, teaching themselves how to bypass passwords and security systems. It started as a game, sneaking into their school's grading system to adjust test scores for fun. But with every successful intrusion, their confidence and their appetite grew. What do you think drives someone across that line, from curiosity to crime? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below as we continue. The strength of Sophia and Isabella's partnership came from their twin connection. While most hackers work in teams scattered across the globe, the Reed sisters had something even stronger: trust without question. They could anticipate each other's moves, communicate without words, and use their differences to complement each other's strengths. Sophia was a strategist, the one who mapped out targets, exploited vulnerabilities, and stayed patient. Isabella was a risk-taker, the one who executed the attacks and improvised when things got messy. By their late teens, they weren't just breaking into school systems anymore. They were breaching local businesses, siphoning small amounts of money from online transactions, always just below the threshold that would trigger immediate investigations. The twins treated it like a challenge. How much could they take without being noticed? For them, it was still a game. That game ended the night they accidentally stole from someone they knew, a neighbor, a retired nurse, had her bank account drained. The local police called it identity theft by an unknown cybercriminal. The sisters said nothing, but as they sat quietly at the dinner table while their parents expressed sympathy for the neighbor, they exchanged a glance that said everything. They crossed the line, and there was no going back. College was supposed to be their chance to start fresh. Instead, it became their launching pad. Sophia enrolled in computer science. Isabella studied business and marketing. Together, they realized they could do more than just steal small amounts. They could run large-scale operations. The first big hit came during their sophomore year. A regional charity organization's database was hacked. The attackers rerouted donations to offshore accounts. Investigators at the time blamed a foreign syndicate. But behind the scenes, it was the Reed twins. They had built a sophisticated web of fake identities and proxy servers that made the crime nearly untraceable. The money gave them a taste of power. But it wasn't just about wealth anymore. Sophia, the quieter twin, saw their hacks as proof of her brilliance, evidence that she could outsmart even the best cybersecurity experts. Isabella craved the adrenaline rush of each new heist. What bound them together now was no longer just sisterly love, but a shared addiction to control. By their early 20s, the Reed twins had moved from small-scale theft to headline-making cyberattacks. They were behind the breach of a mid-sized bank in Chicago, a ransomware attack on a hospital network in Texas, and even security breach of a state government server that shut down essential services for nearly 2 days. And yet, no one suspected them. To friends and neighbors back home, They were still the sweet Reed girls who occasionally came home for holidays. Their parents remained blissfully unaware of their double lives, proud of their daughter's apparent success in the tech industry. But the cracks were starting to show. The FBI's Cybercrimes division noticed patterns, similar coding signatures hidden in the malware across different attacks. Investigators began to suspect that the culprits were not foreign agents but domestic hackers. Still, the twin dynamic made the Reed sisters almost impossible to catch. When investigators closed in on Sophia's online trail, Isabella would create diversions, fake attacks in other states, tips that led agents to dead ends. Their teamwork made them a phantom threat, always one step ahead. What shocked the nation later wasn't just the scale of the attacks. It was the victims. Among the countless people affected were individuals and institutions that had once supported the twins. Friends lost their savings when their accounts were drained during a major banking breach. A local youth center, the same one that had given the twins their first scholarship, lost thousands in a ransomware attack traced back to their operations. Even their former high school saw its student records compromised. The betrayal cut deep. News headlines would later call them the sisters who robbed their hometown. For many, the crimes felt personal. The FBI finally got its first solid lead during the investigation of the Texas hospital attack. A piece of malware used in a ransomware contained a unique line of code and identified the twins had accidentally left in place from their earlier operations. Agents began piecing together data breaches from across the country, tracing them back to a single source. Still, knowing who they were was one thing. Catching them was another. The Reed twins had grown more cautious, using advanced encryption, burner laptops, and even manipulating cryptocurrency wallets to cover their tracks. But investigators knew the sisters' bond could also be their weakness. One night, after months of quiet observation, the FBI intercepted a suspicious message between two anonymous users on the dark web. The conversation hinted at a new attack, bigger than anything the twins had ever attempted. But there was something else in that message, something the investigators hadn't expected, a crack in the sisters' unity, a sign of betrayal brewing within the very partnership that had made them unstoppable. The FBI had been patient, painfully patient. Months of combing through encrypted chat logs and cryptocurrency trails had finally revealed a breakthrough. One of the anonymous dark web accounts showed a subtle but telling shift in tone. The messages were sharp, curt, and laced with frustration. Unlike the usual precise coordination the agents had grown accustomed to seeing between the two hackers. At first, investigators assumed the change was a ruse. But as they monitored further, a picture began to emerge. Sophia and Isabella, once inseparable, were no longer perfectly in sync. The source of the rift wasn't money. It was ego. Sophia had always been the mastermind behind the code, the strategist who turned their hacks into flawless digital heists. Isabella had been the executor, the one who took risks and basked in the thrill. But as the attacks grew in scale and notoriety, Isabella began craving recognition. She wanted the world to know who was pulling the strings. She started dropping hints in hacker forums, subtle phrases only insiders might recognize, taunting authorities with a digital signature that looked like an online graffiti tag. Sophia was furious. To her, secrecy was their lifeline. Isabella's need for attention wasn't just reckless, it was dangerous. Their arguments escalated behind closed doors. Neighbors in their apartment complex would later recall hearing raised voices late at night, muffled but heated. The FBI, still in the dark about their identities, began to suspect that the culprits were either fighting or preparing for something big. Do you think ego is often the undoing of criminal partnerships? Share your thoughts in the comments below as we go deeper into the case. Despite their growing tension, the Reed twins went ahead with what they believed would be their final job, a colossal ransomware attack against a major federal agency. The plan was bold and terrifying. Lock up thousands of sensitive files and demand millions in cryptocurrency. It was a move that would cement their place in cybercrime history, or destroy them completely. Unbeknownst to them, the FBI had infiltrated one of their trusted communication channels. Agents were watching in real time as the twins discussed deployment dates and system vulnerabilities. But they needed more than messages. They needed proof strong enough to survive in court. So they waited and watched. Every keystroke the twins made brought them closer to the trap. The break came one rainy Thursday night. In the middle of testing the ransomware code, Isabella made a mistake. She used a personal hotspot instead of their usual secure network. It was a small slip, just a few seconds of vulnerability, but it was enough. The FBI traced the IP ping to an apartment complex in Seattle. Within hours, a quiet but intense operation was underway. Plainclothes agents scoped out the building, mapping exits and monitoring movement. They knew they had to be careful. The twins were known to have devices set to self-wipe if they sensed a breach. On a cold Friday morning, the calm of the neighborhood was shattered. A team of FBI cybercrime agents, backed by local law enforcement, descended on the Reed sisters' apartment. Neighbors watched from their windows as officers in tactical jackets marked FBI moved in. Sophia was at her desk, headphones on, eyes locked on lines of code when the door burst open. Isabella, caught off guard in the kitchen, froze as two agents leveled their weapons and ordered her to the ground. For years, the twins had danced in the shadows of the digital world. Now, under the harsh fluorescent light of their small apartment, they were exposed, just two young women whose faces would soon appear on every major news network. At first, the sisters refused to speak. Sophia kept her eyes fixed on the table during questioning, her face unreadable. Isabella was restless, shifting in her chair, occasionally muttering about unfair treatment. But over the course of days, the weight of their betrayal, of their victims, their community, and each other began to crack the facade. In the end, it was Isabella who broke first. Faced with evidence of their final planned attack and the prospect of decades in prison, she made a deal with prosecutors: testify against her sister in exchange for a reduced sentence. The revelation devastated Sophia. For years, they had been a team, each trusting the other completely. Now, in a sterile interrogation room, she realized the same sister who had once distracted police to save her was now the one delivering the final blow. The courtroom was packed on the day the trial began. Reporters from across the country filled the seats, eager to cover what had become one of the most shocking cybercrime cases in U.S. history. The prosecution painted the twins as calculating predators who had betrayed their own neighbors and charities. The defense tried to argue that Sophia's influence had drawn Isabella into the crimes. But as evidence was displayed, bank records, ransomware code, dark web chats, the jury saw not just two faces, but a partnership that had thrived on greed and arrogance. In a moment that would later make headlines, Isabella testified against her sister. Her voice trembled as she admitted her role, but placed the blame squarely on Sophia's shoulders. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as Sophia, once stoic, lowered her gaze, her expression a mix of hurt and disbelief. In the end, both sisters were found guilty. Sophia received a 35-year federal sentence. Isabella, because of her cooperation, received 18 years. The verdict brought some sense of closure to the victims, the neighbors who had lost their savings, the youth center that had been crippled by ransomware, the patients affected by hospital breaches. But the trial also left a lingering question. How could two promising young women, raised in a loving community, become the architects of so much destruction? Cybersecurity experts say the Reed twin story underscores two critical truths. First, that the most devastating cyber threats often come from within, not from distant foreign actors, but from people we think we know. And second, that in the digital age, power without accountability can corrupt even the strongest bonds, even the bond between sisters. The case also led to tighter security protocols across hospitals and charities nationwide, as organizations realize that vigilance is not optional in a world where threats can come from anywhere. Sophia and Isabella Reed's downfall is a tragic reminder that the line between genius and criminality is often a matter of choice. Their story proves that even the closest relationships can fracture under the weight of greed and ego. Thank you for staying with us till the end of this chilling story. If you found it eye-opening like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below. And most importantly, subscribe to BYTE Crimes. Your support motivates us to keep bringing you more true, educational, and deeply human stories about the dark side of the internet.